Thank you. Blake. Awesome. Uh, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome everyone who's here in person. Welcome to everyone who's joining us by live stream. We'll begin this evening on page 10 with Yedid Nefesh.
Yidi nefesh avarachaman avarachaman mishoch avdecha el ritzonecha yarutz avdecha
It's a pleasure to invite Susie Mayer up to light the Shabbat candles. It's just about candle lighting time now. It's so weirdly still light out. And we are on page 2. The blessing is found on page 2.
Hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. So hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue with Lecha Dodi, page 20.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikra b'lah. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nikra b'lah. Shamor v'zachor v'dibor echad ishmi anu el hamichad
be seated. Our last prayer for the Kabbalat Shabbat, the welcoming Shabbat service, will be a peaceful disposition by Rabbi Nachman of Bretzlav. Teach me, O God, to seek only peace. Save me from every form of argument, controversy, and quarrel. Liberate me from every type of misunderstanding and strife. Where there is no peace, there can be no joy. There can be no love. There can be no true presence of mind. Dear God, let peace be mine to share. Amen. We rise in body or in spirit for the Reader's Kaddish, page 26.
Eid Gadol, Eid Kadash, Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Bi'alma divrach irutei, bi'amlik malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael, ba'gala, uv'yizmahan kariv, v'imiru, amen. Yesh me'rabba mevorach, le'olam le'omaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yinaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitale, v'yitalal, shemei kudesha b'richu, le'elomim kol brachata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Damin ran be'alma, v'imiru, amen.
Page 28.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared?
Standing for Shema, page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto. Ve'olam Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated. Thou shalt love, page 36.
Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in thy heart, shall be in thy heart. Thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, when thou risest up, when thou risest up. Thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes. Thou shalt write them on the doorposts of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that ye shall remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
And we continue with the third blessing, prayer for freedom, Michamocha, page 40. And our last blessing that is part of the evening service is Hashkivenu, page 42, a prayer for peace.
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom Amideinu Shomrenu Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom Amideinu Shomrenu Lefayim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu Lishalom Amideinu Shomrenu Lefayim.
I was just thinking about how I wasn't here last week, and I traveled to another synagogue in another state, and they had the hand motions, but they didn't put their whole body into it. So I'm excited to be back home in East Cobb, Marietta, Georgia, page 44, Vishamru, the whole body version.
Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat Lidoratim b'ridolam Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat Lidoratim b'ridolam Bein Yuvain B'nai Yisrael Od Leolam, Od Leolam, Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat Lidoratim b'ridolam Hishesh Yamim Asa Adonai et ha-Shamayim v'et ha'aretz Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat Lidoratim b'ridolam Uv'hayom ha'shvi'i Shabbat v'yinafash Shabbat v'yinafash Shabbat v'yinafash Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat Lidoratim b'ridolam Vishamru B'nai Yisrael et ha-Shabbat Lasot et ha-Shabbat Lidoratim b'ridolam. Now we take a breath, we rise in body or in spirit for the Amidah, which will begin with Adonai Svatai Tiftach, a private meditation asking God to open our lips in prayer. We'll sing together aloud through Atah Kadosh on page 52. Adonai Svatai Tiftachu fi Agita Hilatecha Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu Eloheinu v'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Hasei Avot V'Imachot, U'Mevig Ula Lifnei V'Nechem, L'man Shemo B'Yachava, Melech Otzer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Zrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Moshiach, Mashif HaRuach HaMarid HaGashem, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Sohomev Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekaye Be'emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Mehelach, Melech Mimit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'nemanatav L'chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. Atah Kadosh, V'Shimcha Kadosh, U'Kadoshim B'Chol Yom, Ya'alelu Chaselah, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh, you are holy, and your name is holy. Those who strive to be holy, declare your glory day by day. Blessed is our God, blessed is the one, oh world ablaze with splendor. Atah Kadosh, V'Shimcha Kadosh, U'Kadoshim B'Chol Yom, Ya'alelu Chaselah, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue with Avodat Halev, silent meditation, and we'll meet together for Oseh Shalom. When you're finished with your silent prayers, please be seated. Oseh Shalom. continue in a moment with the Mishaberach L'Cholim, a prayer for those who are in need of healing, which can be found on page 253. First, I'll read the list of names of all of those in our community who are in need of healing. If you know someone who is sick who is not on the list, I'll pause afterwards for you to add their names now. We are keeping in mind this evening Harvey Adelsky, Sherry Alexander, Lucille Alina, Gary Atkins, Richard Barker, Betty Berlin, Lynn Birmingham, Ray Clark, Bruce Cohen, Isidore Cohen, Nicholas Catrone, Mary Davis, Stephen Despens, Clark DeVoskin, Mitch Earl, Alan Eisen, Carrie Ehrlich, Aaron and Roz Feingold, Laura Florence, Bobby Fredrickson, Lauren Friedman, Max Gans, Tom Gorgon, Rick Hack, George Campbell Hamilton, Frederick Herman, Braden Hink, Laura Jacoby, Maria Javier, John Jenkins, Linda Jenkins, Shannon Jenkins, Charles Jones, Lila Kaminer, Jackie Capstein, Bob Kershaw, Marilyn Krasnov, Cindy Levine, Ansley Levy, Ken Levy, Marcia Levy, Dorothy London, Asa Luo, Liz Lyman, Lisa Macklin, Paul Melnick, Arnold Meyer, Esta Mitchell, Phyllis Mix, Lowell Morrow, Shayna Bakmoshe, Greg Mosher, Simone Neiman, Arthur Newman, Joyce Newman, Lynn Prisant, Kathy Rasnick, Marjorie Romes, Deborah Rowan, Peyton Rowland, Norman Rosenblatt, Sherry Rosenblum, Barry Savage, Patty Savage, Lisa Schaefer, Brian Schneider, Eric Schuster, Lee Sexton, Nancy Shallett, Carter Silk, Nicole Aronson Silverman, Debbie Singerman, David Skolny, Arthur Slutza, Linda Spitzer, Brenda Wadler, Dr. John Sid Williams, Dr. Walter Wolf, Faye Yeager, Yarden Meir Ben Yitzchak, Paul Zale, Kenneth Gray, Mira Shoshana Bat Rivka, Aharon Ben Yocheved, Leah Bat Mindel, Yona Bitzalel Ben Chave Shoshana, Zelda Itta Bat Malka. Are there any other names?
Those in need of healing with refuah shlema, a renewal of body, a renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And now please join me in English for a prayer for peace in Israel during wartime. We will say additional prayers for soldiers serving in the Israeli Defense Forces and for the return of the captives, of the hostages, tomorrow morning at Torah study. You'll find the prayer on your blue card. Rock and Redeemer of the people of Israel, guardian of the covenant, bless and protect the state of Israel and all of her inhabitants. Guard this good land established with liberty, justice, and peace, as conceived by the prophets of Israel. Open the hearts and minds of all the leaders of the nation, her sons and her daughters, to guide them in the paths of peace and justice, with true strength and wisdom. Strengthen the hands of those who defend and protect our holy land, and crown their efforts with success, that they might establish your reign of righteousness, free from all oppression and fear. May the work of your hands be established, and the words of your prophets be fulfilled. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, nor shall they learn war any more. Amen. Well, Monday, March 25th, was the 59th anniversary of the march from Selma to Montgomery for voting rights. And all of this week, as you can probably imagine, I received emails from various organizations marking this occasion and also asking for money. On Monday, which was the actual anniversary, I happened to share at Lunch and Learn online my experience of hearing a voice from the past, and that was the voice of Representative John Lewis of blessed memory, while I was walking through the atrium with my coffee at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport last week. Now, John Lewis is probably best remembered for saying, "Speak up, speak out, get in the way, get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America." But that wasn't the voice that I heard at Hartsfield-Jackson, and I didn't get the memo, but I think the Center for Civil and Human Rights has a display in the atrium in Hartsfield-Jackson, and there's a television monitor, and I'm not entirely sure, but I think it was not long before he died. It was an older and wiser John Lewis. And he was talking about, I don't know if that speech had a name, but he was speaking, I believe, on the floor in the House of Representatives, and he was speaking about leading with love. That was, I don't know if that's the name of the speech, but get in good trouble is a good one also. So anyway, this evening, which is just a few days after the 59th anniversary of the march from Selma to Montgomery. It is 4 weeks, that's 4 Sabbaths until Passover, when we will tell the story of our people. I decided that I wanted to share with you a few stories from my trip to Montgomery earlier this month. Specifically, beginning with the experience of meeting Ms. Linda Blackman Lowry. Ms. Linda shared memories of her experiences in the children's marches in Selma. And if you don't know about the children's marches, which preceded that big historic march, it is worth reading about. Ms. Linda talked about being jailed 9 times before her 15th birthday, of being beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and of being the youngest marcher on that historic march to Montgomery on March 25th, 1965. She wrote a book, or told her story. It's called Turning 15 on the Road to Freedom. Her 15th birthday was during that march. And it's actually a book for young readers. Y'all in the front row, you would really like it. And there are amazing pictures in there. And the experience of sitting with her for several hours in a pub in Montgomery, because it doesn't matter. We were at a convention and the hotel didn't get the meal right. They didn't know anything about the meal that we were supposed to be having. There were over 50 of us. And Ms. Linda was game. I mean, she's young, but not that young. And she was like, "No, I'm going to sit with you." And we just took over the entire restaurant. We told them we were coming. They said, "We'd love to have you." And she sat with us for hours. And then we went back to the hotel and sat around again, and she signed all of the books for us. She was amazing. And I got to thinking about telling your story. Like, what does it mean to be free? Do you have the freedom to tell your story? And this is something that we're going to be thinking about and talking about these next 4 weeks as we lead to our telling of the story of the Exodus on Passover from the Haggadah. So the Bible scholar Everett Fox, commenting on the book of Exodus, reminds us that human memory is always selective. We remember what we wish to remember, giving particular weight to emotions, sometimes over and above the facts. The same thing appears to be true, Fox says, of group memory. What a people remembers of substance is not nearly as important as how they process their experience. So it is this processing of experiences, remembering as an act that affects our present actions, that I wish to share with you this evening. So it's 3 weeks ago now that I visited the Equal Justice Initiative Legacy Museum. That's EJI, the Equal Justice Initiative. Legacy Museum and National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. I was there with a group of Reconstructionist Rabbinical Assembly members, association members, RRA rabbis, and their spouses and partners. And to be honest, I am still processing the experience of walking through the museum, making meaning of what I saw in the museum, what I heard, and what I felt. I've been writing for the last 3 weeks and speaking about this experience with my friends. But last week was the first time I spoke about it publicly. And I would like to share with you what that experience was like while I'm even still processing that experience. In short, it was very much for me like being at Yad Vashem or the U.S. Holocaust Museum. So you enter the main hall of the, has anybody been to the museum in Montgomery? Oh, okay, good. I hope I will do it justice. You enter the main hall by crossing the ocean. It's a long, long hallway, and it's sort of white. The walls are white, and there's a sound and sort of a motion. You see this motion. It's the sound of the ocean waves rising up above your head. And down this narrow hallway in the middle, it's sort of it's a dark path, and then on the side there's almost like sand, and there are sculptures or partial sculptures of men, women, and children who were kidnapped, chained, and packed like cargo onto ships, thousands of whom, maybe millions of whom, died in the passage, whose bones lay scattered along the ocean floor. And if you can get across this long passageway, you exit through into a huge room that is devoted to the stories of the disproportionate numbers of African Americans who have been imprisoned in our country. That's if you can make it to the end of the museum. But just to get through that passage, for me, the experience of doing that was looking ahead. And there are all these sculptures, and some of them are just, partial bodies, heads, arms, and faces, unbelievably powerful expressions on these faces of people who are just sort of emerging or lying in the sand on either side of you, and it's like walking along, and the ocean is, the waves are roaring. And if you can keep your eye on Paul in the back, right? And it's about that long. It's probably not this long, but it felt longer. There's a statue, a single statue, very tall, of a woman, and it looks like she is wearing a shawl on her head, and her hands are in front of her. Almost it looks like she's praying. And when you get closer to her, the name of that statue is Exode, which means without a home, a homeless or exiled. And it's not a shawl, it's seaweed that's covering her head, and her hands are chained together. They're bound together by rope. Go. Go to the museum if you can, if you have an opportunity. It's incredibly powerful, unbelievably well designed, and it's really worth the trip. Our guides for this trip were two of our colleagues, Rabbi Sandra Lawson, who is not the first and not the only, but one of the few black women rabbis. She's also queer, so black queer woman and a veteran, an Army veteran. She's from here, from Atlanta. And Rabbi Benjamin Barnett. And both of them, when we were on the bus on the way down, of course, they were teaching and riding backwards on the bus and telling us, they were encouraging us to measure our distance from the history and experiences of Black Americans. Slavery, discrimination, segregation, and racial violence, including lynching. And to think, literally to measure what is that physical distance, that geographical distance, that spiritual distance between we as Jewish Americans and the history and experience of African Americans. And we're supposed to think about how we may have benefited from our country's historic and ongoing discrimination against Black Americans. Our mission when we returned home was to find ways to take action to make a difference in our communities. So we spent about an hour and a half at the museum, and then we went to the memorial. It's known sort of informally as the lynching memorial. And we walked in silence under these enormous concrete slabs. They're meant to be monuments, but they're like marble almost. They're concrete and they're on poles, metal poles, and sort of hanging down. There are these, they almost look like, I don't know if you've ever been to, it made me think of Howe Caverns. It's very dark, and they were organized by county. There's one for every county in all of the states. I think it's 47 states, but they're by county and alphabetical by county within the states. So you have to really go through. It's almost like walking in a cave. And these monuments, they're almost like stalactites, that are growing in the cave because of the water dripping. Each monument is engraved with the name of the county and the state in the U.S., and then the names of the victims when they are documented, and the dates of their lynchings. Or if the names, which many of them are not documented, if the names aren't there, it just says unknown. And if there's a date that's documented, the date is there. In nearly every documented case, the perpetrators of the violence were never punished, and the terror and trauma of these lynchings in our country led to 6 million Blacks in the South to flee their homes for cities in the Northeast, the Midwest, and the West Coast. This is known as the Great Migration. You probably have heard about this. I just think it's interesting. The number that is there in the museum and in the memorial, the figure that is quoted is 6 million. Right? Not even 10 days ago, I attended here in this sanctuary a candlelight vigil hosted by the Cobb County Remembrance Coalition, the CCRC, to remember Mr. John Bailey, a victim of racial terror lynching in Cobb County on the anniversary of his death on his yahrzeit, which was March 20th, 1900. The coalition here in Cobb County has worked with the Equal Justice Initiative, the EJI. That's Brian Stevenson's organization, if you know about it, Just Mercy, there was the movie. So they worked together with the EJI to uncover the details of John Bailey's life, which are few. We don't have too many details about his life here in Cobb County, and the specifics of his murder by a mob of 100 masked white men, some of whom were armed with pistols. Their mission, the commission's mission, is to educate the community about this terrible period in our history. And I'm not going to go into the details. It's PG-13. But if you're interested, I did take one of the cards. There were many of these cards, and some of you were here that evening. And it has on the back, Remembering John Bailey. This is in order to educate the community and to tell his story. So the keynote speaker that night was Cobb County District Attorney Flynn Brody, who is an African-American man. And he said, among many amazing things that he said in his keynote address, he said, and I quote, "We all know the famous saying of philosopher George Santa Anna, who said, 'Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.'" And Mr. Brody added, I would add, doomed to relive it. At the same moment that we were lighting candles to honor the memory of John Bailey, many vigils of a different sort were taking place all across Georgia. People of faith and people of no faith raised their voices in prayer and protest that William James Pye, an intellectually disabled Black man, was being led to his death, execution by lethal injection, at the Georgia Diagnostic Prison that evening. Georgia is the only state in the United States that requires people with intellectual disabilities to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they are intellectually disabled. Represented by poor legal counsel in his original trial, refused repeatedly by the state to have his sentence commuted to life in prison, William James Pye represents our country's need for a reckoning with our history. Just 2 weeks earlier, I had stood under the monument bearing John Bailey's name in Montgomery, Alabama. I tilted my head back and it was very high up, and I held my phone at a really awkward angle to photograph this monument to record the date of his death, so that when we rabbis and our partners and spouses gathered in the garden to recite the mourner's Kaddish, I could add his name. I wanted to share these stories of my experience of remembering our country's past to illustrate how short the distance is between our past and our present. Indeed, Mr. Brody addressed a crowd of 150 people in this room, diverse in age, race, and religion, noting how we have taken important steps forward to address injustice, racism, and anti-Semitism in our community. And then, when he said that, he held up a plastic bag containing a neo-Nazi flyer that was cast in his driveway and hundreds of other driveways and homes all over Georgia last July, right here in Cobb County and in Dunwoody and Decatur and down in Macon. And he said, and he was holding up the bag, you know, it had some rocks in it, so maybe some of you received them. I keep this with me, Mr. Brody said, to remind me that while we've done a lot of work, we still have a lot of work to do. The work of remembering and processing our past experiences in order to affect our present actions. That is this work, building coalitions, gathering together, as Dr. King would say, in beloved community, to combat hatred, to lead with love, as John Lewis would say, to lift up the experiences of our people by retelling the stories in order to create a better future for our children and grandchildren. This, my friends, is the holy work of tikkun olam, of repairing the world, that we must do together. May God bless the work of our hands. Amen. rise in body or in spirit for Aleinu, page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latekedu la'liotzer bereshit, shelo asanu kirei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo samcho kenu kachem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, Umishachavim umodim, lifnei melech, balchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
May we open ourselves to beauty and to wonder. May we care deeply for one another, near and far. May we shed abundant tears to honor all the loss and devastation in our world. May we honor our ancestors to receive their blessing. May we overcome our fear of death. May we learn to see with new eyes, open to new possibilities. May we each be empowered to give the best of our gifts. May our human family empower leaders for their wisdom and compassion. May we know resilience as a species that has survived many plagues, wars, famines, and other hardships. May we restore our capacity to live sustainably with our Mother Earth. May we grow our courage to undo racist beliefs and systems, to hear the cries of the oppressed, to be a force for love, truth, and justice. May our love for one another overcome the forces that try to divide us. And may we know and proclaim that we are one. Ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may be seated for a moment. Before reciting Mourner's Kaddish, we announce the names of loved ones whose yahrzeits are observed this week. If you are here for the yahrzeit of a loved one, or if you are here in mourning for someone who has recently passed, please rise when I read their name. Larry Ampel, Roberta Besser, Barbara Brandt, Julia Frank, Phyllis Hirschberg, Richard Hober, Irving Kamener, Ethel Keston, Julia Klein, William Klein, Tilly Memis, Susan Simon, Harriet Weitzenfeld, Philip Kaufman, Jessica Berkeley, Eva Rothstein, David Bemis, Henry Meininger, Bridget Paon, Dennis Lebo, Sandy Fay, Stephen Eckber, Ellen Marcia Katz, Sydney Schneider, Melvin Kiner, Francis Reif, Sandra Slutza, Mary Thoburn, Erica Goldstone, James Corley, David Reckman, Judith Siegel, Norman Spitzer, Joanne Hankins, Helene Holtzman, Barbara Rubin Pizik, Mark Newerman, and Edith Meininger. We join together. If you're not already standing, please rise in body or in spirit to support those who are in mourning. Page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, B'yalma divrach hirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yamechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam umei umaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitrumam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudasha b'richu, Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiram b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. You may be seated. We have a couple of exciting celebratory things and then announcements. So it's anniversary Shabbat. If you are here celebrating a wedding anniversary and you would like to, please come down so that we can recognize you and grab the mic, tell us who you are, maybe where you met, when your anniversary is. No one? Seriously? It's a first.
It is.
Oh, I was so excited.
They must be out celebrating their anniversary.
I mean, maybe people are out celebrating. Why wouldn't they want to celebrate here? I'll tell you why, because there's no chocolate on anniversary Shabbat. That's only on birthday Shabbat. All right. Well, if there are no anniversaries to celebrate, I'm going to go ahead and invite Sandy Davis, president of board of our trustees, to come make some announcements. And I'm sure that she's going to tell you it's 4 weeks till Passover, right? Take it away.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We just finished an amazing Purim, but our sages teach that preparation for Passover should begin 30 days in advance. You can cross one part of your preparation off your list right now by signing up for our second night congregational Seder on Tuesday, April 23rd at 6 p.m. Thanks to the generosity of TKE's Women of Reform Judaism and Men's Club, the Seder is just $50 per person for TKE members and $60 for non-member guests. RSVPs are required by April 15th at kolemeth.net. Join your Temple Kol Emeth friends and family at our Avodah Off the Square Evening of Honor at Glover Park Brewery on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. As we celebrate Craig Aronoff and Pam and Byron Spanger for their long-standing service to Temple Kol Emeth. Tickets to this fabulous evening are limited and selling quickly. Order yours today at kolemeth.net. Submissions for the Avodah Tribute Journal are due by this Monday, April 1st. Order yours at kolemeth.net. I hear a theme, kolemeth.net. If you're not able to join in person, please consider making a donation towards the future of TKE. Please join us after services for our oneg in the social hall. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Following Kiddush and Motzi, don't forget to return your Sidurim to the cart in the back. I think there'll be some volunteers there. And since I didn't get to wear it last week, oh, Passover's still 4 weeks away. So, yeah, sorry. If you were missing thing 6, it's not really a thing, but I'm here tonight. All right, we rise in body or in spirit for Kiddush. Blake, take it away. And Motzi, helpers, you can come on down.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I turned that one off. I turned that one off before services. It was like, why have it on?